On March 27th, single mom Cassie Carli was dropping her 4-year-old off to spend time with her father, Cassie's ex-boyfriend, Marcus Spanevelo. They were supposed to meet in the parking lot of a restaurant in Walton County, Florida. That night, Cassie's family received some unusual text messages from Cassie's phone. Her ex said he dropped Cassie off to visit a friend. But when Cassie never showed up, her family got worried and began searching for her. It took a week, but then Cassie was found, dead, in a shallow grave in Alabama on property connected to her ex-boyfriend. He is now charged in Alabama with abuse of a corpse. But after the medical examiner found cause and manner of death to be undetermined, there are no murder charges pending. Tonight, we get reaction from Cassie's family as her sister joins us live.
Absolutely heartbreaking story. You think about that little girl losing her mom at such a young age. It's. Before we get into that story, I want to remind you of a few other cases that we've covered here at Court TV. I want to begin with Dante Lucas. You may recall Dante Lucas. He was charged with the murder of his girlfriend, Kelsey Schelling. Kelsey disappeared. Kelsey was never found. Didn't matter. Prosecutors still went forward and were able to convict Dante Lucas of the murder of his pregnant girlfriend. That happened in Colorado. Another case I want to tell you about, James Prokopovich. You may remember this case. Older man married to a woman named Victoria. He was having an affair, and it turns out that Victoria went missing. Well, prosecutors gathered their evidence together and were able to prosecute James Prokopovich for the murder of his wife, Victoria. One more case I want to tell you about. Another one out of Colorado. Patrick Frazee, you may remember him. Kelsey Bereth was the mother of his child, and she disappeared. It turns out Patrick was having an affair with a nurse. That nurse ended up testifying against him, but Kelsey was never found, yet Patrick was convicted of murder. So, why am I telling you about these three cases right now? Because these three cases all have something in common. Yeah, no body was found. But also, no medical examiner came into that courtroom and told the jury what the cause or manner of death was. Are you following this? Okay. No medical examiner was able to come in. The bodies were never found. So how on earth could you figure out exactly the cause or manner of death through an autopsy? There were no autopsies. But it didn't stop the prosecution of the cases. Investigators put the facts together, circumstantial cases. Circumstantial evidence can be very, very compelling, very, very convincing. I'm a former prosecutor, I know. So keep that in mind tonight. And just a few minutes ago, I reported on the breaking news out of California. Kristen Smart disappeared in 1996. There was no autopsy. There was no cause or manner of death testified to in a courtroom, yet those prosecutors were able to prove that Paul Flores murdered Kristen Smart. All right? Keep that in your mind, because where we are in the case of Cassie Carli is in a similar place. I want you to listen to Sheriff Bob Johnson here talking about the discovery of Cassie's remains.
We discovered her body while executing a search warrant in Alabama. It was in a barn in a shallow grave. So it's not the ending that we wanted, obviously, but we're hoping to provide a little closure for the family.
Now, there were some charges originally brought in Florida relative to all this, but charges also in Alabama where her remains were found. But here's what the Pensacola News-Journal is reporting tonight, and I want you to put this up on the screen. Charges have been dropped in Santa Rosa County, that is Florida, against Marcus Spanevelo, the one-time boyfriend of Cassie Carli, and the man Santa Rosa County Sheriff Bob Johnson implicated as the main suspect in Carli's death. Those were other charges, and then there are no murder charges against him. It's abuse of a corpse that he's facing right now. So where exactly does this leave the case and this family? That's what we're going to talk about now. And let's bring in our special guest. Joining me tonight in Nevada, Florida, is Cassie's sister, Ray Ann. Ray Ann, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know this is never easy, but we appreciate your time. First of all, how is your niece doing? How is she holding up?
She is doing great. She is thriving.
Well, I like to start on a high note, and that's a very high note. I know she's got family around her that love her. She's back where she should be with family. Obviously, she should really be with mom, but we know what happened here. How about the rest of you, the rest of the family?
We are slowly trying to heal. It is difficult with so little answers and updates. We are slowly just trying to piece this together and hopefully have a murder charge soon that can help us grieve.
What have investigators and prosecutors told you? Have they shared anything with you? Is there any progress on where they are in this investigation? We know the bombshell from the autopsy, you know, no manner or cause of death. It's undetermined based upon those results, but any signs?
Right. They have yet to give us too much information. We understand, though, they want to make sure they're getting everything ready and dotting all their I's and crossing all their T's. So, you know, this can only be tried once, and we want to get it right that one time. So we have faith that Alabama is working closer to a murder charge now. Although Florida dismissed their trial, that is with good reason, and hopefully that will progress Alabama even further. So,
absolutely, and you know, in the setup to all of this, and I know that it's disappointing, but these cases can be made and they can be won. It has happened. It's a little more difficult, obviously, without the results from the autopsy being able to tie everything together. But there's lots of other potential evidence out there, ways to put it together. Tell us a little bit about Cassie and what was going on in her life and what her relationship was like with her daughter and what life was like for her.
Cassie was doing so amazing. She was hopeful. She had a dream job. She was starting that upcoming week, looking at houses for her and Sailor. The future was so bright. Her and Sailor every day, best friends, mom and her going to the beach, doing crafts. That was her dream, and she fulfilled that, and she was going to make sure she fulfilled all of Sailor's dreams. She was amazing, the best.
And at that point, what was going on in her relationship with her ex, your niece's father?
She was very glad that the courts were finally holding him accountable. That gave her some peace that she was seeking for so long. The battle was finally coming to an end. She was looking forward to that. Marcus and her, he hadn't shown much aggression or anger or anything toward her in the recent. He was just quiet, and she was peaceful and looking forward to the end of that.
And when you say the end of that, where was it in the system? Like, were there rulings that were going her way, and she was going to be able to, you know, make decisions and be able to move on to a certain extent?
Yes, she was finally being awarded all that back child support. He'd never paid a dime for Sailor since she was born. She was finally getting awarded the legal fees that he used to systematically abuse her with, racking up her lawyer bill, but that backfired on him. And he ended up having to pay those fees. I'm sure that angered him greatly.
And what was the nature of the relationship when your niece was younger? Were they at any point together raising a daughter, or was he always the absentee father, the deadbeat?
Cassie wanted so bad to co-parent with him, and I think he wanted more than that. He didn't want to just be a co-parent. If he couldn't have it all, then he wanted none of it. And he wanted full control of Cassie and her role as a mother and his role as a father. So if she wouldn't agree, he didn't want to parent. He was absent. She tried to get him to come to doctor's appointments. Nope, he wouldn't come. He only showed up when he wanted to start trouble. He only would show up to the daycare to start trouble and inspect Sailor and make a false CPS report. He never had actual concern for his daughter and her well-being.
I think you hit the nail on the head with one word. It was control. If he couldn't control the situation, and that's what happens, and that's we see it so many times in family courts around the country. Once there's a judge and there are rulings and things are written down, all of a sudden that one parent who tries to control and manipulate everything, all of a sudden gets put in his place. And unfortunately, from time to time, we see that is a point of danger for some families. But what you were telling me really, though, is that the writing wasn't necessarily on the wall. Were there threats in the past that you were privy to that your sister would talk about?
I'm not sure if straight up threats, but threatening behavior, showing up to her workplace, asking questions surrounding businesses, inquiring her whereabouts, and dangerous behavior that she did file for restraining orders. I know when he spoke of having weapons at points, she knew he had that and he was a danger. So she did make reports, yes.
So from the way you were seeing this very tumultuous situation, was it a matter of that he was trying to use your niece to get back at or get back with your sister? Was it just about the money that he didn't want to pay? How did you see what was really underlying the tension there?
Once again, I think back to the controlling Sailor, how she was raised, the controlling her future and every aspect about that, every decision made. And she was the prize. Yes, I believe Sailor was the prize in the end, but I'm not sure Marcus even knows what he wants.
It's amazing because a lot of times in situations like this, there are those fathers who make a lot of noise, but then when push comes to shove, they don't really want to do all the things that you have to do to be a parent, to be a single parent especially. I mean, that's a big, tough job. Sometimes they talk the game, but they can't actually do it. And it comes back again to, I just want to call the shots, but I don't want any of the responsibility. And that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, for example, the filing for full custody, but my sister would give him many opportunities to have Sailor, not only on his scheduled weekend, but on different times, whether it's birthday or something, and he wanted no part of that. So very conflicting. Yeah,
we've seen it many times. All right, Rayanne, you're going to stay with us because in our next segment, I want to bring in a good friend of mine, good friend of the show, Joseph Scott Morgan. He has worked for medical examiners' offices. He's investigated tons of cases just to get a little perspective on what this undetermined death determination really means and how the case can go forward. So I really want you on board for all that. So he's going to join us, plus coming up next hour.
Big breaking news in Monterey County, California. Cal Poly student Kristen Smart disappeared in 1996. Her former classmate Paul Flores finally charged with her murder, and now tonight the jury has finally spoken.
So like I said, I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad some people that doubted me, they feel, but I don't see a lot of changes.
It was a holiday parade that quickly turned tragic.
Evil has arrived, and it's shown what it can do.
Darrell Brooks is accused of killing 6 people when he drove his vehicle through a crowd of spectators.
In a surprising move, Brooks waived his right to an attorney and instead will be representing himself.
Our cameras will be inside the courtroom as a community searches for justice.
The Deadly Parade Crash Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 9/8 Central. Only on Court TV.
We have definitely got a great case, and I think once the autopsy's done and you see the charges filed, you'll understand. But I think we have a great case, and I think he's either going to spend the rest of his life in prison or he's going to get the needle. So hopefully the needle.
That's the sheriff talking about this man, the ex-boyfriend of Cassie Carli, the father of her daughter. The problem right now, though, is that there are no murder charges. And there you heard the sheriff mention the autopsy. He's waiting for those autopsy results. Well, they did come in. And let me show you what happened there. This again from the Pensacola News-Journal. The ex-boyfriend of Navarre woman Cassie Carli has been charged with abuse of a corpse in connection to her death, according to the district attorney for St. Clair County, Alabama. Spanevelo has not been charged with murder in Carli's death. St. Clair County Coroner Dennis Russell told the News-Journal earlier this month that he could not determine Carli's cause or manner of death. And here's the quote: "Undetermined means undetermined," he told the News-Journal. But what does it really mean? We're gonna find out. Still with us is Cassie's sister, Rayanne Carli, and joining us now in Jacksonville, Alabama, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, former senior investigator for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, and host of the very popular Body Bags podcast. Joseph Scott Morgan is with us. Joseph, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much for coming in tonight. Rayanne is Cassie's sister. She's with us, and I wanted you on together because you've got the medical examiner or county coroner saying undetermined means undetermined. And I was hoping that for me, for the viewers, and for Rayanne, you could give us a little more insight into how that determination is made, the undetermined determination, and what it means for this investigation going forward.
Rayanne, first off, my deepest condolences. I'm very sorry. Very, very sorry we're having to meet under these circumstances. Let me shine a little light here. Relative to this idea of undetermined, it's one of the 5 manners of death that we use. And the upside when you have undetermined is that another meaning to this is that there's potential for all other options to still remain on the table. And you have wiggle room with this. That means that the door is not completely closed on the prospect of going back and readjusting the findings once more testing is done, perhaps, and once more circumstantial evidence is developed. And I think that's key here. And I've worked, and you and I have covered many cases, Vinnie, over our years together, where there have been U-turns that have been made in cases where there is an undetermined initially, and then they come back and they'll make some decisive move at that point in time. And actually, I think that this is kind of a brilliant move because everything remains on the table at this point. You still got this guy on this other charge, which is quite interesting in and of itself. because it implies any number of things, and I can dig into that a little bit with you as well. But I think that you should keep the faith here relative to the undetermined charge.
So we're past the point of autopsy, but my understanding of what I've seen in court testimony is that medical examiners can take into account autopsy results plus other circumstances surrounding the death as well, right?
Yeah, they can. And sometimes, you know, the coroner's presented with this information. You know, this autopsy would have been performed up in Huntsville, Alabama, not in St. Clair County. Okay, so this information would have come down from the forensic pathologist up in Huntsville with the state medical examiner's office. And the coroner is working with what they have. I think that probably there are some changes that have taken place after death. I think that's probably compromised some of their ability to see things more clearly. And sometimes the obvious things can be a bit muted after a period of time, particularly if you're talking in an austere environment where you have a burial, these sorts of things. But if, you know, one of the things that kind of stands out to me with this case, if you've never been to Spanevelo, Alabama, I have, and it's not some place, it's a lovely place, but it's not some place you wind up by accident. And the fact that this fellow knew this location, and that's where Cassie's remains were found. He was known to frequent this location. He had knowledge of this location. Is kind of a big tell for me. And you know, going back to what the production team had rolled a few moments ago, that you know, that bold statement that the sheriff had made, you know, from the podium, that he's going to get the needle, that they have a lot of faith in what they were finding moving forward. I think that that's key as well, because they know a bit more here, and I suspect that they're probably developing more information.
And they can buy time now as well. I mean, you've got these other charges in Alabama, abuse of a corpse, and Rayanne, as you said, do it once, you want to get it right, and you have to. You only get one chance in this case. So Rayanne, at this point, is the family confident? Is the family scared? Is the family afraid that there may not be a moment where, hey, this man gets charged with murder? Where are you guys right now and all that?
We are confident. As like he said, with what Sheriff Bob Johnson stated, and we are confident. Marcus he's not smart enough to not make some mistakes. So I have faith there is lots of mistakes he made, and they will be able to present that and come up with a murder charge.
And Joseph, I want you to just take a moment. You were mentioning that abuse of corpse charge. What does that tell you, and what's the significance there?
Well, I think that is, and you know, Rayanne, forgive me, but you know, there's this idea, this morbid treatment of Cassie's remains. There's a lack of respect here. There's a diminishment, if you will. You know, we put a lot of faith in trying to discover how bodies are treated after death relative to the behavior of perpetrators. And when a remain is treated in such a manner where it's not properly memorialized, that goes to a bigger picture here. And that's what you're dealing with. You know, she's got a precious little angel, you know, that she's been raising. She's not going to have that opportunity to grieve in an appropriate amount of time like this. The family, you know, they might want to have seen the body, for instance, the body be prepared, that you could mourn, those sorts. All of that has been removed from them. Every bit of that. They've been robbed of that by virtue of the way he treated Cassie's remain. And that's absolutely horrible. And that's what this charge goes to. That's where this idea of an abuse of a corpse comes from. And, you know, when the law was laid down all those years ago, and there's similar laws throughout the nation, you know, we've handled any number of these cases like this. That's what the legislatures were getting to at that point, that we have kind of a standard, a societal standard, that this is the way we treat our dead. And if you violate that, you're going to be charged like this. And there's any number of ways you can be charged, but I think that this is quite horrible in the way Cassie's remains were treated.
All right. Before we go, Rayanne, if you have any questions for Joseph, feel free to shoot them out there. What I would like
I think I'm good.
Okay. What I'd like you to do, though, is we start on the high note, right? About the good news about your niece. Let's finish on the high note. Tell me some story, something that maybe your niece said or did that will make you smile and make the folks watching smile a little bit tonight.
She loves playing. Her mom loved her Mardi Gras parades, so we will play Mardi Gras parade pretend sometimes, and she loves that. We will keep the tradition alive and take her to many parades.
That is fantastic. Well, Rayanne, thank you so much for your time tonight. Our thoughts are with your family, and please, on behalf of everyone, know that there are a lot of prayers being sent to your family, especially to your little niece, Sailor. Thank you so much.